The CEO of an Australian childcare council said, "There is no task, no endeavour, no profession and no vocation more critical and more vital to our society than the care and education of children." But educators often note that the image of early childhood teachers is tinted by gender and culture biases. The teacher's role is a pink ghetto, a female profession tied up with disparaging notions of women's domestic place, and is underpaid and undervalued. But according to Nobel Prize-winning economist James Heckman, $1 spent in the early years is estimated to save between $3 and $9 in future spending on health, social and justice services. Following the Heckman equation, quality birth to 5 early childhood education delivers the greatest return on investment, making this women's work our best strategy for a healthy economy and society. It's unsurprising then that advocacy is identified as one of the 5 faces of early childhood leadership. But in truth, the Heckman equation can be found in the other 4 too. Community leaders become involved in a wide variety of social and civic concerns. Pedagogical leaders shape agendas. Conceptual leaders consider education reform within broader social change. And administrative leaders provide programs with vision, inspiration, structure and direction. The image of the early childhood teacher as domestic caregiver might seem at odds with these loftier agendas. But perhaps it is not that educators need to learn how to look like traditional leaders. Perhaps caregiving needs to be recognised as a legitimate synonym for leadership. Some educators enlist Foucault to point out that power is bound in and exercised through discourse, and that discourses create truths that shape how one thinks and what one believes about something. Perhaps the discourse that needs to change is not that caregiving and education is women's work. After all, what's wrong with women's work? Let us instead consider the notion that women's work caregiving skills are the future of equitable global leadership. Each routine activity in a child and caregiver's day involves care, emotion and learning in the Abecedarian approach's enriched caregiving model. In Gillian Rodd's typology of leadership, each routine activity of the professional working day involves tasks and responsibilities, personal qualities, and professional skills. In one study, teachers who had instigated change across the centre appeared to have done so through informal, somewhat ad hoc means, such as making changes in their own rooms that sparked the interests of other staff. Outside of informal influence, they faced barriers in instigating change, such as lack of time, the notion that qualifications don't buy authority, and the absence of official leadership titles. Seeing these results as a failure to exact leadership, except when it happens informally, is to accept the traditional dominant discourse of a leader as someone who owns and exercises power over others, with followers who are passive and willing to receive direction. What if we heeded Foucault's wisdom that this discourse shapes how we view things, and instead come to see the informal, interpersonal influence which spreads change virally throughout a centre as a successful, truly democratic form of leadership, one that enacts change by inspiration rather than authority, by modelling rather than by mandate. One education coach said of her role, "It's more than just mentoring because I'm there a lot of the time, modelling behaviour, modelling practice for educators, so that they can learn to use that in their service with the children. I am influencing and changing the educator's practice. Do what I am doing." It's been suggested that we can address the resource barriers to mentoring programs by integrating mentoring into staff roles. One way to do this is to emphasise modelling and mentoring in every aspect of every day, much like in the Abecedarian approach with children. Use rich, interesting pedagogical ideas with every staff member at every level of experience and qualification. Don't wait until a formal training session or to be given a formal title. Engage in reciprocal communication up and down the chain of command, and model this anywhere, anytime, by listening to and nurturing the certificate and diploma qualified educators the way you would like upper management to treat you as a teacher. Just as it has been recognised in the vocational training arena, our foundational or core skills must be constantly refreshed, rehearsed and reinforced in our routine activities, not just in separate and costly training sessions, if we are to achieve and maintain equitable and high quality services and workplaces. In each routine administrative task of the day, invest in your peers' relationships and learning so that you are in practicing enriched leadership. Use the 3N strategy. Notice what your peers are doing. Articulate your observations and invite them to articulate their thinking and choices. And nudge each other with questions and new ideas. The vet training industry is transforming its approach to literacy and numeracy as a result of the emerging evidence that integrated approaches may produce better outcomes than standalone training, and to reflect the preference of many learners from diverse backgrounds for some form of integrated training as opposed to dedicated separate classes. The early childhood teaching profession can borrow much that is useful from this trend towards integrated or embedded learning. What was once dismissed as informal can then be seen as integral. We can resist the dominance discourse, which focuses on understanding and interpreting the rules rather than on debating the intent of the rules. If the aims underpinning the dominant discourse really are rooted in the Heckman equation and getting the best societal return on investment through quality early childhood education, then it's likely the aim is better served by an alternative, nurturing discourse of serve and return relationships. In this women's work leadership discourse, teachers and caregivers are experts in enriched caregiving for a flourishing society.